So here with Alan Shoup at Taste Washington 2010, and he was telling us a little bit about his vision for Long Shadow, what it means to him.
Let's start from scratch.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Give me a question.
So, Alan, bring us up to speed, but for maybe people that aren't familiar with the Long Shadows project, what your vision was, what your personal passion is for this winery as a label, as a brand. I know you have all these different wines with different labels on them, but they're kind of all under the same umbrella. Tell us a little bit about the formula, about how you go about it.
Well, let me start from the beginning. You know, when I first came to Washington in 1980, obviously the industry, for all intent and purpose, didn't exist, and we had to build everything from scratch. And as far, you know, we've gone way beyond what we ever really thought would happen. But in the process, we realized we're growing phenomenal fruit. We've got tremendous winemakers with incredible passion. Maybe there's more passion here in winemaking than perhaps most anywhere in the world, because the people here know that they're at the birth of a very important event, which is the creation of a major new wine region. And it seemed to me that the one thing we didn't have, and I never quite understand, is why some of the better winemakers throughout the world haven't migrated here the same way they have into other regions. Yeah. And so I decided, well, you know, the concept that I did when I was running Saint Michel with Pierre Antinori and Dr. Lucen, bringing these kinds of people who have incredible credentials and come here voluntarily.
Long pedigree, right?
Long pedigree. They want to work with these grapes. They're excited about it. That idea first, you know, got started with Bob Mondavi when we brought the Baron Ross Shadow to Napa. So
right.
that's wasn't anything that I invented. But I felt like if we could, you know, take that to the next stage, and I could get some of the great winemakers that I had been lucky enough to get to know over the years, and have them come here, give them an economic stake in succeeding by giving them a percentage of each of the wines that they individually made, that maybe we could, you know, come to another plateau and show just, you know, what we can do with people who have generational experience in growing grapes and making wines. And that's sort of what we've done. It was more difficult in Canada, and I thought much more expensive as well. Each of them, you know, I told them when they started that they would have no excuses, that I was going to give them whatever tools they wanted, and I guess I underestimated how exotic some of the tools would be. And the other thing I underestimated was how much it was going to cost to get the kind of quality grapes that we needed to buy. Having run Saint Michel, where the average cost of grapes is under $1,000, I thought I was being very ambitious when I figured that I'd pay maybe $1,500 a ton for grapes, and the reality was that paying over $3,000 a ton. So much more expensive, but still, the wines, I think, so far have reflected everything that we had hoped to do. We're really very proud of the wines, and the project's working quite well. It's just a matter of, you know, spreading the word. Most people still have never heard of it, and heard of us, and as that happens.
Right. Tell us a little bit about how the relationship works with, we all know that Gilles, your primary wine maker, the hands-on guy. So your project, you hire in these quote-unquote rock stars from around the world that each specialize in a certain region or a certain varietal to come in and kind of be the executive producer, if you will, work with Gilles in producing these wines that truly express the terroir, the varietal, and all that stuff. Explain to us a little bit about the working relationship between, for example, like a John Duval. How does he come in and work with Gilles to make sure that the wines are going to be up to a certain standard?
Well, in fairness, another area that I probably underestimated is the importance of somebody like Gilles Nicole. I knew I had to have a very good winemaker that these people would respect, but as we got into it, it was obvious that he had to be more than just good. He had to be as bright as they were, and he had to, you know, be somebody who could also sit on his eagle when it was necessary if they wanted him to do something that he wouldn't necessarily have done on his own. He's been so successful at it that to a person they all fall in love with Gilles. They all hope I'm always checking with me to make sure I'm paying them enough, that we're not going to issues. And
Right.
that if we eventually divide these into separate wineries and build separate facilities, something I'd like to do someday, which one would get Jill, because he's critical. And,
Is that why you said he's your boss?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't say that. He's more important to the success right now than I am, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it's been blessed that I would get a person of such not just skills but temperament and
passion
and this willingness to learn. And I mean, I believe he will be the #1 winemaker in the world in terms of experience and knowledge and all the tricks he has up his sleeves, because they are all so willing to share everything with him, and he's so willing to learn.
Yeah.
And you look at that cadre of winemakers, and that's quite an education he's giving, and they love him, and of course their responsibility is still to come in and put their own input. They have to do the blends, they
Right.
have to review, and they do it very aggressively in terms of what they want, what barrels they want, how they want them treated, how they want their fermentations to take place, how they want their grapes sorted or not sorted, or what kind of lots that we bring in and what times. So it gets tricky for Joe to balance it all, but he does it.
Absolutely. About a year and a half or so ago, came out, and obviously there's news releases and this kind of stuff about the big chunk of land that you purchased along the Columbia River. Tell us a little bit about why that purchase was important to your overall vision of Long Shadows.
Well, I think it's been pretty well established throughout the world that really, truly great wineries, and those are what I hope to be creating here, are wineries that can rely on their own source of grapes, that have their own vineyard. So owning a vineyard, an important vineyard, is, I think, a critical part to what we're trying to do. And this particular vineyard that we bought is, I think, has the potential to be the best vineyard in Washington. I thought that when I was running it again, Saint Michel, and contracted the entire vineyard for Saint Michel. It's certainly the most dramatic vineyard in the state. It's got the most unique microclimates. It's
Very steep hills.
It's very steep southern inclines that are, the vineyard drops from 1,300 feet down to 300 feet, and very quickly. So we have virtually every microclimate that you can create in Washington.
And you guys plan on selling that fruit to some other wineries too, don't you?
Well, it's so big that we'd never use more than a small percent of it ourselves. So it's a big vineyard. We're gonna we'll probably double it over the next 5 years. So.
What would you tell somebody out there that had never heard of Long Shadows as to why they should seek your wine out?
Well, okay, so we would tell them. What I would tell somebody probably is just that it's unique, it's interesting. They wouldn't be disappointed in the wines, but I have a hard time telling anybody that my winery is better than anybody else's winery. We're all struggling. We're all trying to make the best wines we can make. So I would encourage them to see it because it is unique. But there's a lot of other wineries I hope they visit just as well as mine.
What are a few of your favorite personal wine regions right now outside of Washington State?
Personal wineries or wine?
Wine regions. What are a couple of
regions.
your favorite regions right now outside of Washington?
I'm kind of like a meat and potatoes guy on that issue.
Yeah.
I love the traditional wineries. I love Bordeaux. I love Burgundy. Napa is still the king when it comes to Cabernet. Sonoma does a good job in most things, but I think Napa probably still is the champion in that regard. I'm excited about Oregon and their Pinot Noirs. I think what they're doing with Riesling and Chardonnay is equally exciting. Of the coming regions, I don't know enough. I've been to them all. I've visited them. I've never really yet seen wines on any scale from any of those regions to get too excited. I think perhaps the next exciting thing is what we're going to see in the Rhone, and as we're seeing now, that they're getting more and more serious about styles of wines. And I think this will be, in my mind, perhaps the most exciting thing in the next 20 years would be some of these wonderful wines coming out of the Rhone Valley. And I get excited about that because I think we can make that style of wine here in Washington. So.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.